My question is like, what you've done so much, you've helped billions of people, but what still drives you? What keeps you going?
I just seeing people, I grew up in a pretty tough environment, and there was a lot of suffering involved. And because I know what suffering is, I hate to see anybody suffer. And especially these days with COVID, with families, spread apart, elderly people not being with their, grandchildren, it just makes me crazy. So anything I can do to make a difference drives me, but also what drives me is seeing the impact, seeing people reclaim themselves. I mean, right now it's very easy to let the environment start to make you believe that this is going to be horrible forever and the world as you know it's over. If you watch CNN or any news over and over again, you want to cut your own throat. In fact, I read yesterday in San Francisco, 3 times as many people have died of overdoses in the last 9 months than have died of COVID. Like, we're not understanding the impact. So I'm constantly looking to see how we can break the impact. So I have large goals. I have the stuff day to day that touches me. A friend calls me yesterday and tells me he's 48 years old. He got a divorce. His 16-year-old daughter doesn't want to talk to him. I can't just go do this. I spend 45 minutes or an hour, and I love that. And then I get, an email from 5 vets today. I work with a lot of veterans, and I don't know if you guys know it, but 12 veterans kill themselves every day on average. Suicides, insane what they've been through, and we just discard them. So I know how to help, but shit, I could do all day, every day. I couldn't reach them all. So I found a doctor that has developed this shot that literally gets rid of PTSD. It's been proven for 10 years. It's 92% effective. So I funded it. So I got 100 vets now. And these guys are writing me these letters telling me that, they couldn't be with their children. They tried suicide twice. Fortunately, they failed. And now, literally a couple hours later, their head is clear. The world is color again. They're going to be with their children. I'm providing 100 million meals a year. I've been doing that. I set a goal to feed 1 billion people in the US, and I was going to do it in less than 10 years, and we're at 700 million in 6 years. So I'm closing in on that. But my birthday party last year, I didn't want to party, a party with a purpose I was into. So I convinced everybody, you're going to throw a party, then we got to do it to really raise money. And we did for Underground Railroad, and we raised, 14 million. I added another 5 million. So we raised $19 million, saving 25,000 kids from slavery. And so that kind of stuff, how could you not be inspired when you're seeing people eat again, when you're seeing people be free, when you're providing surgeries for, 100 kids last year that were blinded who can now see. So I get the juice from the big things, and I get the juice from the individual things. But for me, it's about impact. If you can have impact and your life is meaningful, your life isn't going to be happy every moment. That's bullshit. But it can be meaningful every moment. And that's your job. It's our job to find a deeper meaning. And I think that meaning comes, and the energy of life comes, when you're not just trying to serve yourself. I think, unfortunately, for so many of us, social media and technology has started to shape us instead of us shaping it. It's using us. And the way it's using us is it's making us selfish. I mean, you see people like banging on their phone, like, give it a moment, it's going to a satellite, give it a second, you jerk, or you turn around and you see people like, they expect like everything to be given to them the moment they push a button, and humans don't work that way. And so it's made us, that along with, I'm sure you guys have seen The Social Network, the social dilemma, I should say. Yeah. Social dilemma, and you just see how we've been wired to be separate from each other, we're wired to stay online, wired to be aggravated all the time. So to me, it's a really important time for human beings to remember that, listen, there are things you obviously can't control, but there are plenty of things you can control. You can influence most things, but you can completely control your experience of life. And we forget that when every day you turn on the news or it follows you in your pocket and keeps telling you the worst scenario. I mean, people think that things are going to be good forever when it's going great, and that's total bullshit. Life is cyclical, right? There's always a new challenge or problem. You become better if you face it. But also when things are going terrible, they think it's going to go terrible forever, and it's bullshit. We're in winter. It's going to be a longer winter than I want and you probably want. There are going to be people 5 years from now still wearing a mask in their mind because it's kind of like the Depression generation. They're going to overreact, but there's also going to be so many new opportunities. So winter's followed by spring, baby. The darkest nights always followed by the day, and that's trite sounding, but it's effing true. So it's like we need to take control. So what gives me excitement is see people take back control of their life and not fall into the trap of being a robot or fitting into everybody else's plans.
I'm a 17-year-old kid from Azusa, California, with no real education other than self-education, with no background, with parents that did their best, all of them, with no money, but I did one thing. I love people, And I had an enormous demand I made upon myself, and I sculpted my mind and my emotions to get me to do whatever it would take to achieve and to contribute. But to do that, I did it by using my body and changing my focus. I did it by putting myself in a peak physiology and using what I call incantations. Can you train yourself to believe something? Yes or no? Absolutely. How many of you ever made the fatal mistake of going to Disneyland or Disney World, and while you're there made the fatal mistake of going to a ride called It's a Small World After All? What happens for about a week after you're out of that damn place? You're still singing this thing in your head in 24 languages, right? Well, let me tell you something. How many of you have things when you want to go achieve them and this part of your voice goes, oh, it's not going to happen, or forget it? How many got a voice that sometimes interrupts that good pattern? Say, I. And what you want to do is train a new one. So starting when I was 17, I started doing incantations, not affirmations. Affirmation, you go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. What's the problem? You haven't changed your what? Your what? Physiology. If you don't change your physiology, you won't get anything. So an incantation is not only you speak it, but you embody what you're saying with all the intensity you can. And you do it with enough repetitions that it sticks in your head. Like It's a Small World, now the conversation in your head is always the same and it gives you what you want. So you use your body and your voice. So 17 years ago, I started doing things. I was working for Jim Rohn, this speaker, and I was 17 years old. I had long hair, minestrone soup, acne on my face. And I was trying to call on Bear Stearns type of people and convince them why they should go to this man's seminar and be more successful. I was driving a 1968 Volkswagen that I had earned at $40 a week as a janitor. The only way I did it was park far from the building and then go in, and I love people and I believe, but I put myself in state and I was able to influence people that were far more successful than I was at the time. I would do something that I still do backstage and have done for 23 years because I don't hope I'm going to be in a good state, I demand it. So I do an incantation using my whole body. I'd say, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible alive today to better their lives by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their lives now.
But now let's look back in time for a moment. The Roman Empire endured for about 500 years, more than twice the time the United States has existed. The framers of the Constitution closely studied the decline and fall of Rome in order to create an American government that would avoid a similar fate. So far, their efforts certainly seem successful, but it will be another few hundred years before we're really able to say we've lasted longer than Rome did. And despite all the remarkable flexibility our form of government has displayed over the past 2 centuries, it's almost inconceivable that we'll ever last as long as the ancient Egyptian empire that spanned more than 2,000 years. Think of it, that's 10 times as long as America has existed. Famines, floods, invasions, and plagues came and went. But through it all, there was an unbroken succession of Egyptian pharaohs. Nothing lasts that long. Certainly not a government without a great deal of flexibility. Yet amazingly enough, when it comes to flexibility and being able to adapt to the changing circumstances of history, Egypt isn't even the all-time champion. The oldest and longest-lasting empire in the world is that of the Chinese. Many dynasties, many emperors, many reigns, but always the empire endured. How was this possible? It wasn't because of military power or tremendous wealth, because over the course of thousands of years, those things came and went many times. The real reason the Chinese empire lasted so long was because of the work of 2 very different philosophers. The first, Confucius, provided ideas that became the solid foundation of the imperial government. He supplied the theories by which the imperial government was conducted. Confucius taught a code of ethics that provided specific instruction on how the ruling classes could fulfill their duty to the nation and maintain law and order. He was essentially a lawgiver, a thinker who supplied some fixed beacons for navigating the ship of state into the unknown future.
Well, I'm suggesting that people stay away from that resentfulness and bitterness, even though life is hard and there's malevolence in the world. It's like, yeah, you can tell a story where everyone's a victim, because we all die, we all get sick, you know, and things happen to us that are bitter and terrible. Betrayal, deceit, lies, like people hurt us on purpose, you know. So it's not just the tragedy of life, it's malevolence as well. It's everyone's a victim. You can tell that story. The problem is, if you tell that story and you start to act it out, you make all of that worse. That's the problem. And it's so, this is why partly I got attracted to Christian imagery, at least in part.
So if we sit here and plan for 47 days, and on the 48th day we step out and we start to execute and something goes wrong, well, we're not going to make the 50-day mark because we spent all that time planning. So the longer that you're sitting around, the less time you have to recover and adapt and adjust. And the longer that you wait while you're doing planning, the less relevant your plan actually becomes. So that's what you need to make people understand.
World class comes from instinct versus intelligence. You get your best ideas when you get out of your thinking. And just to give you some neuroscience, the seat of reasoning is the prefrontal cortex, but there's a phenomenon I teach in my live events called transient hypofrontality. This is the secret of genius. Geniuses don't get their ideas for Uber, Amazon, the electric bulb, Tesla, Shakespeare, the polio vaccination, SpaceX. Great ideas don't come from the intellects. They don't come from the neocortex reasoning and thinking. All great heroes and great inventors and great creators dialed into something deeper. When you get out of your neocortex through solitude and my life structure that I teach called the tight bubble of total focus,